What's up, duelists? Some of you might be thinking to yourself, Keegan, why is there a giant mind control on your screen? It's because I recorded the subsequent match on my alt, but I don't really want to leak this alt yet because I'm testing a bunch of stuff on it. So, yeah, I don't really want people to know it's me when I play against them because it definitely changes the way people play or the way certain people act. Lately, I've been having a lot of people join and then going AFK or join with like meme decks or just whatever. I kind of want to get like a more random approach to this, a more accurate feeling for what the format feels like when people are actually playing versus me as though I'm not myself. So that's why I'm on my alt for this. Yes, I know I have a bunch of alts, but this is the one that I have not leaked. Well, one of the ones that I have not leaked thus far. This is Diva Zombies. You guys have seen this before. I like this deck. I think it is worse than Welly Dad personally, but I do think it has some strengths. One being when you normal summon Diva, if you have a Goblin Zombie in play, you win the game. That's pretty cool, as long as you have one extender. I'm playing triple Book of Life because that's one extender. Easy clap, right? I am playing Future Fusion. I think if you're playing this type of deck, Future Fusion's too good not to play. It just makes everything so much easier. I'm not playing Evil Guy. I'm not playing any other heroes. I'm just playing Stratos, double Malicious. I am playing one Armageddonite. I think Armageddonite is actually a really good card in this deck because it makes you have live Book of Lives a lot more often than you normally would otherwise. It turns your Rhoda into like a combo piece almost. It also sets up for Call of the Haunted. It also sets up your Malicious. It just sets up a lot of stuff for this deck that otherwise you wouldn't be able to set up. I'm playing Trag. I'm not playing Gores. I don't think Gores is super good in this type of deck. You just set a Recruiter and your Gores just rots in your hand, so it's kind of awkward. I am playing Sangan. Sangan searches for Diva, which is your kill combo. And yeah, I mean, it's just a pretty straightforward list. The biggest issue with this list, obviously, if you guys read the title, is this deck doesn't really have a lot of outs to main deck Christia in the main. I do have one Regeki Break and one Phoenix Wing, but that's literally all. I can't do anything else besides maybe Spear Reaper stall on Caius. But if they add back Herald of Orange, there's just nothing I can do to a Christia game 1. I think I might need to alter this list to be able to deal with Christia game 1. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with this list, especially into like the Mirror, into Blackwings, and into Frogs, which are the other 3 decks that you really should be preparing for because they are probably the other 3 most common decks at tournaments. In the sideboard, I am citing 2 copies of Doom Caliber Knight. I have definitely sung this card's praise before. I think it's fantastic in these style of decks. It's better in the Welly Dad style decks, but it's obviously still good here. Helps you get through annoying threats, helps you secure victory shots through Gores, through Trag, through Battle Fader, etc., etc. Double Cyber Dragon for machines. I do like Silchus Ruin's tech of Skill Drain. I think it's very strong. I like pulling the rug to stop Caius. I like Dust Tornado to force through your plays. I am citing Trap Dust Shoot in this deck. You can main it, but you have to cut something that kind of contributes to what you're doing or a key piece of removal in order to fit it into the main, which I don't love, so I'm just citing it. It's also like not great going second in a lot of matchups, so I pretty much just cite it in going first. Double Book to help you deal with Christia. 1 Crow because you can search it off Sangan, helps in the mirror match, that sort of thing. And then 1 Card Trooper to help deal with Thunder King Ryo, which is kind of a bitch for this deck. That's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and hop into the match. It's me versus the opponent. I'm not going to say his name either. Obviously, don't want to leak stuff. And this is a long, grindy game. This is zombies versus fairies. And before we even get into things, I want to say a lot of this is going to be determining what text your opponent is playing. A lot of this is going to be determining how your opponent wants to sideboard. And then at the same time, dealing with Christia or making sure your opponent can't get to Christia effectively, either utilizing Book of Life or utilizing other methods that can help you get to that point. I think Trag is super good in this matchup. This is a decent hand in this matchup. It's not great, but we do have Reaper to help stall out if we need to, and we do have Tragodia to help parry offense if we need to. I think once you determine the texts that are being played in the decks, once you determine exactly what's in your opponent's list, it becomes a lot easier because you know how much they can pivot between those texts and between other different things. But once the information game is happening, the fairy deck is strictly favored. It is just very difficult for the zombie player to play because the zombie player has a lot less wiggle room in what text he can include in the main deck. Or I should say they can include in the main deck. I lost the die roll, of course. Opponent sets 2 background passes a turn. I pick up a copy of Brain Control. I decide that my game plan is just set Mirror Force and pass. If they flip Ryko and they pop my back row, they'll attack and then I'll be able to drop Trag, which is fine. At least I'll get Trag and play that way. They flip DD Warrior Lady, and I'm like, okay. So DD Warrior Lady It is literally one of the best cards in the format. It could be any deck. Even zombies could play DD Warrior Lady at this point. So it's really hard to tell exactly what is playing DD Warrior Lady from the opponent. I don't know he's on fairies. So me holding the Mirror Force here, I'm not really sure I want to do that. I think I just want to take this 1-for-1 trade. DD Warrior Lady annoys my hand. Yes, it does set up for my return. I did consider that. And maybe this is an error going for this 1-for-1 trade. Maybe I should just let this happen and then Tragodia run over the DD Warrior Lady. But I think if my opponent's willing to attack like this with one DD Warrior Lady, then they'll be willing to attack with their next monster, and I'll be able to drop a strong track later regardless. They set another monster and they pass the turn. We pick up Malicious, not the best draw, but it can make for a powerful return later on if we get a chance to set that up. I just pass the turn. They flip Honest, they summon another monster, and they attack with Honest first. I am going to special summon Tragodia here. So this is pretty good for me. I have a 3000 Trag. His Honest is awkwardly in play, and the Shining Angel can't get in damage. He can bounce his guy, but next turn we can maybe steal the Shining Angel, synchro with it, or sack it for Malicious. I thought a really long time about this play. Playing into 2 back row, again, can be very difficult. Fairy deck does play 3 Book of Moon. So if I go for Trag or Brain Control and he chains Book of Moon, it's pretty bad for me. It is a 1-for-1, and I do need to play through the Book of Moon effectively. Or not effectively, inevitably. So I'm thinking to myself here, basically, what is the worst card in my hand to trade with the Book of Moon, if that's what they have set. I go Tragodia, discard Zombie Master. I figure that Zombie Master is probably worse than Brain Control. Brain Control is really strong. Zombie Master is also really strong, but Zombie Master is a little bit weaker into Book of Moon. It's a little bit weaker into other cards, Herald of Orange Light, Back Row, Royal Oppression, that kind of thing, even Compulsory if he's teching that. So right now I'm just trying to get a feel for what my opponent is on. I pitch the Zombie Master, I steal the Shining Angel, and that resolves. So I'm like, okay, he doesn't have Book of Moon, because he would have Book of Moon for sure there. So he doesn't have Book of Moon. I'm going to attack with Shining Angel. That means like the back row could be only a few different things. I'm thinking right now, potentially Legacy, potentially Mirror Force, potentially he's playing D-Prisons. So I'm like a little bit hesitant to attack with my Trag, because Trag is just like an advantage engine. It basically makes it really hard for your opponent to summon monsters into it. As long as you keep a full hand, he'll at the very least trade for my opponent's Honest at some point, which is really, really strong. So Tragodia is very forcing here. I don't want to throw it away into a Mirror Force, so I just have to attack with the Angel for 1400. This is going to resolve. I'm going to tribute set Malicious now, because maybe my opponent is on Compulsory and Book of Moon and they just saved it for some fucking reason. Maybe they think me stealing Shining Angel is okay. If we summon Plague, they can book that, and then they can crash into the Shining Angel and then own us that way. They get a discard out of us, and then they also get multiple effects that way. So maybe they're thinking that if I steal the Shining Angel, that's okay. As long as they book my tuner or my conversion off of it, that's fine. I also don't really want to play into Torrential Tribute again, because that is something they could have set. So I'm trying to play around a little bit too much here, because I just don't know their techs. I don't know what it is that they have in their deck. I don't know what it is that they would set to like this. Maybe he's playing Road. Maybe he's playing Call. I don't fucking know what he's got set, basically. So I tribute set Malicious. It plays around the most things, and we just pass. Next turn, he summons Dimensional Alchemist, activates Dimensional Alchemist, mills Brain Control, and attacks over our Malicious. This is a fine trade for us. We're pretty much okay with this. There's no monster banished, which is really good for us. That means Torrential Tribute will at least clear one of their monsters. On our turn, we draw Sangan. So I have a couple of options here. I could Brain Control the Dialk to get around the sort of, the Honest in his hand that we know about. I could also just, wait for him to run it over with Honest, but I don't really like that because we're just giving him more activations of Dialk. If one of his set cards is returned from the different dimension, we haven't really gotten a vibe whether or not our opponent actually knows what the fuck he's doing or not, which is another piece of information that you kind of have to gauge. When you're playing against an opponent who knows what they're doing versus playing against an opponent who doesn't, they play differently. And as a result, you need to adapt your play differently. If the opponent is a scrub, for example, they may have return from the different dimension set here. And if they're not a scrub, let's say they're good, they may not have return from the different dimension set here. They may be setting up multiple back row and just banking on us not having Heavy Storm, going for like a gamble play, something like that. So I'm like, okay, I don't really know enough about my opponent at this point in order to really say whether or not they're new or not. So I'm just going to go for Brain Control. I am going to play into the Torrential. This is pretty bad, but at least I'll get some damage in. I attack with Dimensional Alchemist. I honestly should have attacked with the Trag here too. And this is a huge misplay. It cost me a lot this game not attacking with the Trag there, because that's 2,400 points that I wouldn't get otherwise. I was thinking if I get both attacks in, then I can synchro main phase 2, and then he won't be able to crash his Shining Angels into my Trag because it'll be in defense position. So I might as well just get the one attack in, because I'm going to go Plague Spreader plus Dimensional Alchemist into Yugioh in defense position. That's my game plan. I go for this, and shockingly it just resolves. Except he does have Bottomless for the Yugioh. The Plague resolves, but the Yugioh doesn't. And I have a bunch of different options here. I have an 1800 Tragodia. I have Plague Malicious in my grave. I have Return to set up for it. And I think I play these next few turns a little bit passively because I'm just scared of the back row. I really don't know what it is he has. I know he doesn't have Herald of Orange. I know he does have Honest, which can be a pain in the ass for our deck. I don't really want to give him opportunities to get to 4 fairies, but it's going to be a little bit too difficult if I don't play this a little bit more effectively. I do have a read that potentially his last back row is Mystical Space Typhoon, also, because it's something that hasn't gotten used up until this point. It's either Mystical Space Typhoon or potentially Solemn Judgment or potentially a few other things, in which case I don't really want to set the return until I have another back row to set with it to at least blur the Mystical Space Typhoon. So I just pass. I could have made a Stardust in defense, but then I would have to stack and shuffle away one of my cards and basically sacrifice my Trag because then he goes to 1200 attack. So I'm just going to pass. Trag walls everything in the deck. Sure, he could go for Freed to pop my Trag, but then he has no graveyard, which makes me pretty happy. And I can just chill out there, or I can make an 8-star on the next turn and figure things out from there. He goes ahead and T-sets and then passes. We pick up Goblin Zombie, and now I'm just like, Jesus Christ, how do I play into this back row? I really have nothing that can pressure through like a Shining Angel or anything, so I'm just going to set Goblin Zombie and pass. If he attacks into my Trag with something like the Honest, of course, he'll be able to effectively, get through stuff. So flip Raikou, it's going to target my set monster. I think this is not the worst play from him because he is attempting to try and mill up to 4 fairies to special summon Christia. And if he special summons Christia, he wants to clear like a potential Raikou or a potential like Snowman Eater before he summons Christia. Christia can beat over the Trag regardless. And lucky enough for him, he actually does mill 2 fairies. So he goes up to 4 fairies, and now Christia's online. And I could have probably played the last few turns a little bit more aggressively into the back row and just forced him to do stuff, but I didn't. And here we are staring down at Christia with very few outs in our deck. Trag only going up to 2,400 here, not able to wall out Christia. Even if, he didn't have Honest, then he would still be able to get over the Trag, is what I'm saying. He adds back Dialk. He banishes for Dialk. Doesn't hit a monster. Reveals Legacy of Yada. And now I know his techs. So I know he's on Legacies, which is good information to know. That means that one of his back row is potentially Legacy. That means he has potentially slower back row. If he's playing multiple Legacies, he's got Legacy, Space Typhoon, Return, Call, which means he has 5 back row that actually don't interact with anything I'm doing, which means for the next games, I have that information. I can full send into his back row a lot more effectively, particularly if he keeps in the Legacy of Yada Garasus. Normally, I personally don't like Legacies because the second I know about them, and by I mean the opponent knows about your Legacy of Yada Garasus, they become infinitely worse. They are negative tempo cards. They are basically self-time walks in a lot of cases. It'll come up later, you guys will see. But if your opponent doesn't know that you're playing them, it does create a lot of confusion when you're setting like 5 cards every turn, and they're like, what the fuck, how do I play through this back row? Which is exactly what happened to me here in game 1. But now it's starting to make sense. Legacy of Yada Garasu is revealed. I'm like, oh, okay, they're playing a bit different of a build than something I've seen before. This attacks over the Tragodia, Raikou attacks directly, Dimensional Alchemist attacks directly, and we take a shitload of damage. Now, we do have Reaper to stall out here, but we're pretty much just done. I said Reaper, I pass the turn. There's really not much we can do here. We're just done. He goes ahead and activates Alchemist again, reveals Herald of Purple Light, and then Gold Sarks for Archlord Christia. So he's got 3 tech cards he's now revealed to us, which we need to know about for the next few games. I'm actually super happy I got to see the Herald of Purple Light here, and I'm also super happy I got to see Gold Sark. Now, Gold Sark's an interesting card in Fairies. I've tested it extensively earlier on. I have certain lists that are like Christia Turbo lists that play Stratos and D-Draw and like a bunch of weird shit that also play Gold Sarks. And the reason being is if you have Gold Sark plus Shining Angel, that's a turn 1 Christia as long as you can crash your Shining Angel. The issue with that is that crashing Shining Angel turn 1 doesn't really come up that often, And Goldsark's actually pretty bad every other turn outside of turn 1. Once you already have Christia in play, there's not really much more to tutor for here. He's just searching for another Christia. It's like kind of a weird spot to be in. You get the idea. You get the idea with everything. He summons Honest, he attacks, we have Reaper, and it's just like, all right, now what? Now what are you going to do, bud? Now what are you going to do? Switches the right go, sets back row, passes the turn. So he has infinite back row. We don't have Heavy Storm. We don't have Mystical Space Typhoon. We don't have Regeki Break. We don't have Phoenix Swing. We have a bunch of Recruiters, which don't amount to really much in the face of Archlord Christia. We could sack Spirit Reaper for Caius, banish the Christia, but he could have Herald of Orange. I don't remember if he added it back. I think he added back. Did he add back Herald of Orange? I don't really remember. But he could have Herald of Orange, and then B, even if he doesn't, like, we banish the Christia, he gets another one in 2 turns, and there's really nothing we can do about that. Like, what are we going to do? Banish the Christia attack over the Dialk? He just adds back the other Christia and specials it next turn. So it's pretty bad for us regardless, no matter what happens here. So there's really nothing we can do until we find Heavy Storm and can go for like a calculated push. Our brain control is gone. We need at least mind control to help play through this Dialk at this point. We're not in a good spot to come back. I think we're just done this game. Here, he reveals that his center set was Legacy of Yatagarasu, confirming my suspicions that he's on multiple. So he's playing a lot of different techs, Legacy, Goldsark, and Herald of Purple Light. The issue with Legacy, Goldsark, and Herald of Purple Light is that they are all negative tempo techs. They are techs that don't impact the pace of the game. None of these cards are, in my opinion, that great for this deck, and then in tandem with everything else, like when you're combining all 3 of these negative tempo techs, you're slowing down the deck a considerable amount. The Fairy deck does have this ability to sort of out-tempo people with Herald of Orange Light and like sometimes a Soul of Purity and Light, and that's usually all it takes with like an Honest or 2 to win a game. But when you start cutting into the deck, you're adding these weird like cards that are randomly good, but like very situational. I think Legacy, Goldsark are very situational. Same thing with Purple Light. And they also don't play to the deck's sort of natural strengths in the same way. And I can sort of exploit that weakness in the next game. Normally, if the deck was like constructed in the build that we've seen previously on the channel, it would be much harder for me to find a weakness in the strategy and play through it. But because my opponent has this small weakness in the deck building, I'm thinking to myself for the next games, I can maybe exploit that. I can shove a little bit more aggressively, and he might not have the appropriate defense to be able to hold off an early attack. It's possible even this game I could have gone for an early attack, but we didn't know his techs until this moment. Now that we know his techs for the next few games, we can factor that in. Basically, pass the turn. He sets back row, activates Dust Shoot. He gets to see our whole hand. He takes Sangan, meaning he doesn't give a shit about the Caius. Sangan's going back. He draws return. He gets his Christia. He makes a good play here. Typhoon's our back row. Sacks for Christia. Torrentials, stacks his Christia again. Adds back Herald of Purple Light off Dialk. Sets a back row, passes the turn. There's really nothing we can do here but try to put 3 bodies in play. So I banish Malicious. I stack for Plague, summon Plague, make Stardust. This is to try and play around Mirror Force. Normal summon Deep Sea Diva, special out Deep Sea Diva, attack with both. I need him to not have Call of the Haunted here, basically, but he does have Call of the Haunted, so that's going to be this game. It's going to be all she wrote. There's nothing we can do about the Christia that's coming next turn. Basically, what I was trying to accomplish was put 3 bodies in play. Next turn, he can special Christia, get Dialk. We can maybe sack our 3rd body for Christia, for Caius, banish his Christia, but then we're still in the same awkward position where we can't get over Honest Dialk, and we are just going to lose regardless. So we're pretty much caught in the loop here. There's really nothing we can do. We didn't draw the right cards to deal with this, and we're done. This matchup's really bad for zombies, especially, I think, Game 1. Game 2 and Game 3 gets better, especially because our opponent has some weaknesses in his deck list that I think are very, very exploitable when it comes to sideboarding strategy. So if we go back to my sideboard, I do side in the 2 Doom Caliber Knights. I do side in the Skill Drain. Those are 3 very powerful cards in this matchup. And then I also side in the double Book of Moon as a way to deal with Archlord Christia. That card is just too good against our strategy. Even though Book of Moon fucking blows against the rest of this deck, it's necessary because we just don't have enough Christia outs. I don't bring in the 2nd Doom Caliber Knight going first. I only bring in 1 Doom Caliber Knight going first. I bring in both of them going second. The cards I side out are 1 Caius. I think I side out Call of the Haunted. I don't remember. Those are the first 2 cards I side out, though. Caius is pretty bad into Herald of Orange. It's like one of the worst cards you can summon into Herald of Orange. Yes, Caius does clear Shining Angel, but so does Revive King. So does a bunch of other stuff. Our opening hand this game is really solid. We have Skill Drain, we have Book of Moon. So we have a Christia out, and we have a way to stop DD Warrior Lady. I'm just going to summon Stratos, search Malicious, and set my 2 interactive cards and pass. Now, I could have just set Skill Drain and pass, but I don't know. I'm up +1. If he has Heavy Storm, then we're even, and that's fine. He goes Heavy Storm, and alright, we're even. I could chain book my Stratos in case he has Gold Sark or Christia and a Recruiter. That does give him a turn 1 Christia, which would suck for us, but we do have Brain Control as a way to out it, so I'm okay with it happening. I don't feel the need to book my Stratos, especially if he has something like just Honest or DD Warrior Lady. I want him to take damage at least. He goes ahead and sets a couple back row and just passes the turn, and I'm like, okay, this is where I can take into account that his back row are probably weaker. He has at least, like I said, 5 dead back row. Call, Return, Space Typhoon, Legacy, Legacy. It's possible he also has Bottomless Trap Holes too, which mean he can't really interact with my Armageddon Knight. He doesn't have a Recruiter. He would have played it into my Stratos unless he doesn't have a Caius out. But I think he does have a Caius out, a Bottomless Trap Hole. It's possible he still does have a Recruiter, but we don't know that for sure. I'm going to Rhoda for Armageddon Knight. There's 7 back row that don't interact with us at this point in his configuration. And Armageddon Knight plus Stratos can deal 3,200. Potentially, we could see a Brain Caius lethal on the next few turns. So I'm going to go Rhoda for Armageddon Knight, grab that motherfucker, just summon it, say, fuck it, you don't have a sweeper. You have 2 sweepers, and you have 7 back row that don't interact with this. Send Plague, because I just want access to that boy, you know? And then swing for 32, and it just goes through, and it confirms all of my suspicions. My opponent's deck list is a little bit more slow, a little bit more dead. I do set Foolish Burial, because if he does have Space Typhoon, he's going to end-phase Space Typhoon my Foolish Burial. And I don't need this Foolish Burial at this point. All it's doing is sending Mizuki, which is just like superfluous at this point. We don't really need to send Mizuki. Our hand pretty much does what it needs to do. Plague can come back on its own. We can make Bionic, pitch the Malicious that way. There's really not anything necessary for us to have the Mizuki for. So I'm down for trading Space Typhoon for Foolish Burial and for information. So he Space Typhoons a Foolish Burial. Plus now, if we draw our other back rows, they are safe, which is important. He activates Legacy. Suspicions confirmed. There we go. I was going to say confession. This is combining the 2 words. But yes, suspicions confirmed. He did have 2 dead back row, and we were able to shove for 3,200. And this is the biggest downside of Legacy of Yatagrasu. This is the biggest weakness. This is why it's exploitable. It's not a live card for a full turn. You have a full turn that you have a dead card. It's negative tempo. If I'm not just spamming back row removal into your removal, you're not getting value out of this card. You're actually getting much negative value out of this card. So it's a good card when your opponent doesn't expect it. When your opponent does expect it, it's very exploitable weakness. He goes ahead and sets another back row and passes, and I'm like, that's not a Mirror Force. I'm sending again, and now Brain Control's lethal on any monster, and that's just going to be that. Very, very, very devastating for the opponent that he has drawn. All of his negative tempo traps. He can't interact with my monsters that are already in play. He's missed on a Recruiter, and he's pretty much just done here. He sets a monster, sets another back row, passes the turn. I pick up Doom Caliber, which is pretty good. I do have Plague in the grave, so I can kind of force that. Going Zombie Master, pitch Malicious, bring back the Plague. I think that's what I go for. Yeah. I don't really want him to Herald of Orange my Caius, because it combos with the Brain Control later on. I would much rather him Herald of Orange my Zombie Master, and me still have Malicious plus Plague in the graveyard for an extension play. This basically allows me to make 2 plays this turn as opposed to 1. He Herald of Oranges the Zombie Master. Now I'm thinking, okay, possibly he has Call of the Haunted set. I can proc Call of the Haunted by baiting with Malicious activation. I'm going to activate Malicious here, banish it, and he lets this go through. So that means he doesn't have Call of the Haunted set. If he had Call of the Haunted, he would have called Christia there to interrupt our Malicious play, but he didn't have it. So we are able to try and stack for Plague. I do stack the Caius. I want to, I don't know, conceal that information in case he has like Mind Crush. There's really no reason for me to stack the Caius over the Doom Caliber here. It doesn't really change anything. Here he does have compulsory, target the Plague Spreader. You have to do it now if you're him, because if I make Thought Ruler Archfiend, I win the game. So he bounces the Plague Spreader, and by doing so, banishes the Plague Spreader. Compulsory is yet another back row that does nothing into me summoning Stratos or Armageddon Knight or my just like beatdown monsters like Doom Caliber Knight. So I'm pretty happy seeing Compulsory Evacuation Device in his deck post board. I know that I can further play around that with my game plan into the Legacy of Yada stuff. So it's going to banish Plague, and I'm like, that's chill. I'll attack with Stratos. If it's a Recruiter, he'll get his search, but then next turn, Brain Control's game, Doom Caliber Knight's game, we can do a bunch of different stuff. It is honest. I didn't think it was a Recruiter, because if it was, I had no back row. He could have summoned it, crashed it into Armageddon Knight, and then grabbed something else. So I thought there was a chance it was a Herald monster or an Honest, and Stratos was the safest bet attacking into it, because Armageddon plus Malicious is still lethal if it is a Herald, and if it isn't a Herald, if it is Honest, then we take the least amount of damage by attacking with Stratos. So that was basically my detective work there, and we were accurate on that read. I passed the turn back. We're winning next turn, so it doesn't really matter. He activates Honest, sets it, and sets another background, passes a turn. We have a bunch of different ways we could approach this. I think the best way to approach it is to Caius target his new set. If it's Mirror Force, we banish it immediately. If it's Torrential, well, everything goes, but I still have Brain Doom Caliber for game. And that's that. So I'm going to sack Malicious, target his new set. Caius can attack over his set monster. Now, if he has Bottomless, okay, he has Bottomless. You got me. That's pretty good. But, here we are. If he has Bottomless, I don't think he would have compulsed the Plague. I think he would have actually waited until we synchroed into Thought Ruler and then Bottomless there. Either that or save the Compulsory in case we went into anything but Thought Ruler. So I do like waiting the Compulsory. We could have gone into Bryonic and then Priority activated and bounced this dude too. That's another reason to compulse the Plague, but I hadn't considered it at that moment. So I read that he didn't have Bottomless, but it's not necessarily an accurate read here. Caius is going to target the new set. It's going to be Book of Moon. It's going to target the Caius. And I'm like, all right, that's chill. What I can do now is I can actually attack his Honest with Stratos, take 100 damage, and I can Brain Control and bounce his Honest. So I take the Honest and I bounce it. So I use the Brain Control as like a really jank compulsory. Now his turn has to be either summon the Honest, attack over Caius, or set the Honest, and then I can flip the Caius and run over it and hopefully win the game. If he has Recruiter crash into Armageddon Knight, that's like worst case scenario, because then he gets whatever. He can then attack over the Caius with whatever he gets later. It puts us down to 2 threats, but then we still have Doom Caliber Knight to go for game over whatever it is he gets off of the Recruiter. So I think we're still winning through just about anything here, even Recruiter crash, which is normally pretty bad from this circumstance. He goes Summon Dialk, activate the effect, banish Brain Control, attack over the Caius, pass the turn. I top deck Dark Armed, which is actually beautiful because that means I don't have to reveal Doom Caliber Knight for game 3. But as you can see through this Dust Tornado, yet another inactive back row from the opponent. I would be able to defeat him by just normal summoning Doom Caliber. That plays through Honest. He would have to activate Honest on the attack, and he would lose 2 battle damage here off the Stratos and the Armageddon Knight. And then, yeah, Dark Armed is just good because it means I don't have to reveal, or whatever. I don't have to reveal that I have Doom Calibers. Now, for game 2, I side out one of the 3 Book of Lifes. Because I am going second, Book of Life can brick as a 3 of, and I don't really want to summon Armageddon Knight early in this matchup because it can be food for the Recruiters to crash into. I side in the second copy of Doom Caliber Knight, and that's the only change I make. So we go to game 3. And now I know he has a shitload of inactive back row, so I'm just going to play like he has a shitload of inactive back row, basically. I sided out 1 Deep Sea Diva. That's another thing I sided out. I should have mentioned that. I think I forgot, but yeah, I sided out 1 Deep Sea Diva. I think the big synchro plays post board are pretty bad from zombies. They lose to just about everything. They open up your weaknesses to Christia. You should be relying a little bit more on like Book of Lifes and like the value plays of just like trap card on your monster and then attack for a bunch of damage, or Brain Control, Mind Control, attack for a bunch of damage. That should be your game plan. You should be winning by like chip shots, post board with zombies. You should not be expecting to go for a big synchro OTK through Herald, through Christia, through Oppression, through Compulsory, through all that shit. That's just like a pipe dream in this matchup. It really just doesn't work out that way. Our opening hand's pretty good. We have Torrential, we have Goblin Zombie, so that's a combo. Passes the turn to us. IT set Zombie Torrential. I mean, this is pretty standard stuff. We have Book of Moon to help out Christia later. If our Goblin Zombie dies, we can search for a bunch of different shit. We're chilling. We have Reaper to buy time. End phase, he dusts us, giving us even more information about his back row, which is good. We pass the turn. He goes ahead and flips the Angel, attacks the Goblin Zombie. I'm like, all right, tight. I'll search Mizuki. Oh, no, I search Zombie Master. Yeah. I want to search Zombie Master just because I have access to Plague and Armageddon Knight. I want Zombie Master in hand because it can potentially give me a second copy of Spirit Reaper if he's able to out it with, like, I don't know, Smashing Ground or something weird. He sets a back row, passes the turn. IT set Spirit Reaper plus Book of Moon. I figure he might not summon DD Warrior Lady into Mirror Force. He might not. There's a chance. Obviously he does though. So I'm like, okay, now I know what kind of player he is. It's taken me 2 games to understand, but he is a full send type of player, and maybe that information can be useful later in the match as well. He goes ahead and attacks with the DD Warrior Lady, banishes the Spirit Reaper. We take 14, but that's negligible damage. We don't really care at this point. On our turn, we pick up Allure of Darkness, one of the most powerful cards in the zombie deck. Very happy to draw it here because it will correct kind of our awkward hand here. I activate it, we find Stratos, we find Future Fusion, and this is a pretty tough moment because if we banish Zombie Master, we lose our powerful effect, but Spirit Reaper's gone now, so Zombie Master doesn't really have a lot of great targets. But we could also banish Armageddon Knight, even though Armageddon Knight is our Plague access. It is a little bit awkward into Shining Angel. I think I end up banishing the Armageddon Knight just because of its awkwardness into Shining Angel. Zombie Master can bring back Goblin Zombie, which can give us Plague access. So I'm thinking it's just as good as Armageddon Knight, but has a few more attack points, and it can help us maybe make Revive King later on, which is another way you can cheese out this matchup. I activate Future Fusion, and my opponent makes a critical error here. He chains Royal Oppression, and now we just fucking win because he locked himself under his own Royal Oppression. This is how not to play Royal Oppression 101. I had to hope my opponent would make a mistake here. Yes, I was going to go for something a little bit interesting. I think I was going to go for Dark End Dragon. I was going to send Malicious, I was either going to go for Dark End Dragon or... No, yeah, I think I was just going to go for Dark End Dragon in defense position and then pop the Shining Angel and try to resolve it that way. Basically force a Herald of Orange. But yeah, he Royal Oppressions the Future Fusion. Now what you want to do is you actually kind of want to wait on this. You don't really need a Royal Oppression the Future Fusion. If I go for a card that Shining Angel can trade with, you want to leave your Royal Oppression set until, the last possible moment when you don't need to do that. If you don't have enough equity, or not equity, but if you don't have enough, like, removal, and if you don't have enough Shining Angels and DD Warrior Ladies and D-Alks in your hand, then flipping a preemptive Royal Oppression can cut you off from, let's say, the return that's in hand, or let's say, some of this other stuff that's in hand. So he only really has one other real removal spell under Royal Oppression, which is Shining Angel. You kind of want to wait until we've traded a bunch more resources before you're flipping this, because it's actually cutting off one of the cards in his hand as well. It's a very double-edged sword to use it this early. Trades with Future Fusion, we're not able to send Malicious to the grave, but now I'm like, okay, that's fine. I can summon Elemental Hero Stratos. I can search Malicious. What are you going to do? Elemental Hero Stratos will for sure eat the Shining Angel or eat an Honest. Either one is good because trading one for one with the Shining Angel is not a bad thing. It's something that rarely comes up in this type of matchup. Now, I don't really want to attack right now. I think I just pass. Yeah, I just pass. I'll let him crash. If he wants to crash, he can crash, but I'll let him think I have D-Prison. I'll give him the option to decide what he wants to do with that. If he just waits on the Shining Angel, that's even fine for us as well. It just gives us more time to find stuff. Stalemate actually favors the zombie player with Royal Oppression face up, as I've noticed in the past as well. So yeah, switch the Shining Angel to the defense. You need to have a significant amount of removal or be in a low enough resource game state for Royal Oppression to be the play there. Honestly, most of the stuff I can summon from Future Fusion, you can just wait till I summon the Dark End, then Royal Oppression that. And then Shining Angel can trade for whatever at that point. But yeah, you want to wait until you can get the normal summon out of Royal Oppression or something like that. Pretty much. I think it's a little bit preemptive using it on the Future Fusion there. I understand why you want to do it, but it's a little bit preemptive. Anyway, we just set Skill Drain and we pass. Now if we can get a chance to attack into this Shining Angel, he'll grab DD Warrior Lady and we can use Skill Drain to negate that, which is going to be fantastic. He summons Cyber Valley, tries to activate it. We chain Skill Drain. And yeah, this is a fucking crush for him. First off, I don't think he should be using Cyber Valley here. Not only is he sacrificing his normal summon, exposing himself to huge amounts of damage, but he's also exposing himself to our back row, which is Skill Drain. So yeah, zombies do side Skill Drain, something you need to be careful of as the Fairy player. He's going to Herald of Purple Light the Skill Drain because he's more or less obligated to, but that Herald of Purple Light is a -1, discarding yet another powerful card that he needs to sustain this Royal Oppression. Now he's out both Shining Angels and his Herald of Purple Light, and we lost one Skill Drain, which is fantastic for us. He's also lost his normal summon, and I'm going to take this as an opportunity to summon Mizuki and deal a fuck ton of damage. So my opponent's played this game really, really awkwardly. His hand is not lent to pressing the advantage he got from Royal Oppression on Future Fusion, and now this mind control is looking literally deadly. So summon the Mizuki, attack for 3,500. Again, a lot of inactive back row, gonna punish him here. A lot of cheesy, narrow cards like Herald of Purple Light, gonna punish him here as well. He's gonna set a monster, set a couple back row past the turn. I'm like, fuck it. Summon Diva, don't activate, mind control, take the monster, flip it. If he has Mirror Force, alright, he got me. But if he doesn't have Mirror Force, I mean, he's straight up dead. I'm going to Synchro into Bryonic first because he's forced to Royal Oppression, the Bryonic, which will put him in lethal range for Stratos plus Mizuki, which is going to be 3,500. Normally, he would not be dead from just Stratos and Mizuki. So, yeah, he's going to negate the Bryonic, and I'm like, alright, go for game. Forced to Compulsory the Mizuki, pretty happy about that. Attack for 1,800, and we get the damage in. The fact that he compulsed the Mizuki and not the Stratos is interesting too. I understand not wanting to give me the Stratos effect, but there's really not much left I have to search in my deck once Malicious is gone in zombies anyway. I think you can just keep the extra 100. It might end up mattering. I pass the turn. Opponent goes for return, pays half his life. I pay 800 on Oppression, because why the fuck not? He chains Space Typhoon targeting his own Oppression. I'm like, sure, that's awesome. He brings back all the monster. I ask him priority on the summon. So if he goes for priority on the summon, this complicates things. He can target his Shining Angel, activate Cyber Valley, and draw 2 new cards, which is very frustrating. So because he doesn't activate priority on the summon, I'm able to book the Cyber Valley here, which is pretty fucking good. So now, because Cyber Valley needs to target one other face-up card and this card, if he priority activates, I think even if the Cyber Valley is booked, it will still banish and the effect will still resolve. I think I would need to book the Shining Angel instead, which would complicate this game way more than it really needed to. But because he doesn't priority on the summon, I can book the Cyber Valley instead, and he's just in an awkward spot where he has 450 life points. I have a stronger monster in play, and that's pretty much that. I book the Cyber Valley, he crashes, he takes 400, he special summons Honest, he bounces Honest, he special summons Christia. He Christia, targets Herald of Purple, I chain Regeki Break, target Archlord Christia, and now even if his back row is Legacy of Yatagarasu, he's going to go to 3 fairies here, and he's not going to be able to win this. I could have Regeki Braked the Honest too to put him to 5 fairies, but I was a little bit concerned about the ramifications of that if he had potentially, I don't know. I don't know why I didn't do it. I don't know why I didn't Regeki Break target the Honest. I think that would have been a better play in hindsight. But this play works all the same. This draw locks him as well. He's going to add back the Herald of Purple. Christia is going to go to the top of the deck. And now he's at 3 fairies. He has Honest in hand. He's losing his DD Warrior Lady. But we have Malicious to run over the Cyber Valley. And we have Stratos to attack for game. He sets 1 new back row. And I'm like, alright, fuck it up. Malicious activate. Normal summon Zombie Master, pitch Mizuki, special Goblin Zombie, and now this is game even through double compulse, double book. He has set mind control, set compulsory, but that's not going to be enough to stop this. And we were able to prey on his back row weakness in this matchup and exploit his strategy with our according strategy. This is a really, really difficult matchup to navigate, even when the opponent has, some suboptimal card choices like Herald of Purple Light. It's really, really tough, and you do need the text. I think for my list, I am going to go up to maybe another copy of Regeki Break, maybe another copy of Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. Just some ways to deal with Archlord Christia and the set recruiters, because it is a tough fucking matchup. And I think Phoenix Wing Wind Blast will improve it a little bit more. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. This is a really, really difficult matchup, and it's one that doesn't have a lot of coverage on the channel thus far, so I wanted to do something on it. Even though I personally don't really like the Diva Zombie deck, and I personally think it has a terrible matchup versus fairies, and it's generally speaking worse than the Krebins version, I think it is worth showing it because of how popular this deck is. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll see you guys in the next vid. Peace.